All right, good morning everybody. Thank you for joining us. This is the Scprs webinar, Scprs in Fiscal. My name is Eli White. I'm an instructor with California Contract and Procurement Academy. Today we're going to be going through the steps for entering a Scprs into Fiscal, what that's going to mean for you out there as a state buyer, what's required of you, and what are some of the steps that you'll need to be aware of, what are some of the big changes that are coming down the line. So with today's webinar, we're going to be covering a few of the key components. In order for you to get the best out of the presentation, we want you to have completed the user productivity kits on the Fiscal Training Academy website. Those UPKs, as they relate to Scprs, will provide you a firm foundation upon which to build the knowledge that we're going to provide you with today. Now, those are obviously only going to take you so far. The presentation should get you across the line. If you have questions along the way, I want you to take a little bit of a look at your screen. There should be a section on the right hand side, a couple of little buttons. The panel may have minimized, so if you hit that arrow button, it'll bring out the side panel. There's going to be two areas of that panel that I want you to pay attention to: questions and handouts. Now on the questions tab, you'll be able to submit any questions that you have. I'll try and respond to those in real time. If we have any that are outstanding at the end of the presentation, I'll have our presenter today circle back and try and address them to get you a response within the format of today's webinar. Now if we do run out of time, it is a live format, so if we run out of time, we will shoot you an email response with the perfect answer. So fear not, we will get you an answer even if we have to end the webinar due to time constraints. The other handout section that I mentioned is where you will find a list of 3 attachments. It'll be a Scprs bulletin, which our presenter will guide you through just how important that is, and some Fiscal related trainings. Now, unfortunately, if you are just joining us for the very first time with CalPCA's Fiscal related webinars, this is the last week for Fiscal related webinars going live into the interwebs. So that calendar is going to show you what we have available to you for the remainder of the week. Feel free to register for whatever class piques your interest. The information and resources for buyers PDF will have every contact detail that we referenced today, every phone number, every office that we mentioned, as well as direct links from the PDF. You can just click on the link in the PDF, should open up your web browser. And it'll have links to the websites we referenced, the CalPCA website as well as the FTA. So, hopefully you've, as I say, covered the UPKs, at the very least viewed them. Our instructor today is Anella Freeman. She will be guiding us through Scprs. She's another instructor with California Contract and Procurement Academy. And she does, of course, love the odd pina colada, long walks in the rain. Some of that is true, some of it's not. I will let her decide what she wants to tell you in terms of personal details. Anella, take it away.
Thank you so much, Eli. Eli said, I'm Anella Freeman, and today we are going to be covering Scprs, otherwise known as State Contracting and Procurement Registration System, and inputting them within Fiscal. Now, Eli referenced it. This is a supplement to the trainings available on the Fiscal website. We call them user productivity kits, otherwise known as UPKs. Now, the UPKs, I like them because they give you a good familiarity with what the system's going to look like, what the system's going to ask you for. The UPKs related to Scprs cover creating a Scprs entry, adding a Scprs supplier, amending a Scprs entry, and uploading a Scprs entry. Now, most of these processes for Scprs may sound and even look familiar to you because they are similar to what we've done in BitSync. The only real thing that's changing is the system we're inputting these in. Now, really quickly, I know we've talked to, both Eli and I have now said it, if you go to the Fiscal website, you will see the user productivity kits available. They have user productivity kits for Scprs, CSCR, as well as progress payments. Now you see that there is the see it, try it, and know it modes. These help you navigate and get used to what I like to call the clicks of the system. They tell you where to navigate, what to press, where to add certain documents, etc., etc. So these are all helpful as we try to get familiar with this new software. The fourth column I want to call out is the print it option. So if you're someone someone that likes to have something tangible in your hand. Maybe you want to have something printed out for your desk manual. Maybe you want to make sure that you're doing all the right steps. There's the print it mode. Now you won't get the screenshots. However, you'll get the step-by-step directions that the UPKs take you through. Now I will say, the screenshots I have on my presentation today are taken directly from the UPKs. So there's no difference in terms of what I'm showing on my screenshots and what the UPK showed. The difference that I'm going to have today is what I'm going to call out, make more explicit, maybe make mention of, help make sure that you note as you operate within Fiscal. So today's session, as a reminder, are not going to go through these UPKs. That's what they're on this Fiscal website for. They're there to help you so that you do them, you try them, and then you can test yourself. Today's session is going to focus on the differences you're going to encounter as you operate within Fiscal. So this session is definitely not designed to replace these UPKs or any job aids that you may have available to you. The idea is that the UPKs, along with this webinar, along with the job aids, will help you as you transition, will help you as you work within Fiscal. So hopefully we'll accomplish some of that today in this session. So the first thing I like to talk about is, what do I need to remember? So your procurement and your reporting, what we're all used to doing, even before Fiscal, will still be guided by policies set forth by DGS and the Department of Technology. So the State Contracting Manual, codes and regulations all still apply to your procurements and reporting. The only real thing changing is going to be the system we're reporting within. So we all have been assigned specific roles. The roles that we had in BitSync aren't exactly the same roles that were available in Fiscal. So your department had to go through a whole process to map you and your colleagues to proper roles so that you could function and perform different duties within Fiscal. Now, it's your responsibility, if you have these roles and with the roles you have, to know the policy, rules and regulations that guide your procurements and reporting. Fiscal is just a system. It's not going to put up, actually it's going to put up little to no red flags or hard stops if you're doing something wrong. Fiscal does not know the State Contracting Manual. It doesn't know your departmental policies. So if you're doing something in Fiscal that is not correct, the system is not going to recognize that. So be aware that it is your responsibility, your fiduciary responsibility, to know all of the rules and regulations and policies that are guiding your procurement. Now, when it comes to departmental procedures, you'll see as I go through this presentation, and if you've gone through some of the other presentations regarding CSCR, things are a little bit different, and what Fiscal will do and will not do differs a bit from what BitSync would allow us to do and would prevent us from doing. Therefore, your department may have revised its policies accordingly. However, you are still responsible for knowing your departmental policies and following those as well. Remember, your departmental policies can be more restrictive than the State Contracting Manual. So make sure you're familiar with all avenues, your SCM, your codes, your regulations, and your department's policies and procedures. As we always say here at CalPCA, cover that acquisition. That way you're going to be protected when an auditor comes to your office. So as you went through the UPKs and went through the step-by-step processes, like I said, things may have sounded and looked familiar, and they should, because some of the steps are very similar to what we've done in BitSync. But you might have noticed there are a few things that are different, and I want to focus on that for the rest of this presentation, because I think it's important to note what may be a little different and what may need your attention as you enter your Scprs entries. So the biggest thing that I hope that you noticed is that the EP number is gone. So there is no longer going to be an EP number required on the Standard 65. The SCM volumes are being updated to reflect this change. It's going through the process right now. So if you are subscribed to those broadcast bulletins, you will be alerted when that change has officially occurred. In the meantime, I don't want anybody holding up their procurements for a number that Fiscal will not provide them, right? We're used to entering our purchase order into BidSync, BidSync providing us with an EP number. We put that EP number on our purchase order. Then we take the purchase order to be signed by our manager and then send it off to our vendor. Again, the EP number is not going to be provided to you within Fiscal. So, what does this mean? By saving your entry, that is what's going to comply with policy, because that serves as your registration. So by saving your entry in the Scprs section of Fiscal, you've created your registration. So when an auditor comes into your office, they're going to use your business unit and your purchase order number, search for your entry, verify that the entry exists within Fiscal, and then proceed on to their next steps, reviewing your file. Okay, we'll go into that a little bit more, but I just want to make sure you understand that the auditor will be looking and searching within Fiscal to verify that the registration has occurred. Now, policy is not going to require that you print out a screenshot or anything like that to verify that you've registered your purchase order. Your departmental policies, though, may have been revised and now may require you to do so because of the fact that the system does not provide you an EP number. It's almost like when we pay our credit card bills, right? We use that EP number almost to verify that we've already done the registration. With no EP number, how do you verify that? I'll go through some helpful hints, but just keep in mind that this may be one of the areas that your departmental policies may have changed. So make sure you're familiar with your documentation policies and you're complying with that. So, now that the elephant in the room is out of the way, I want to touch on a few things that the UPK touched on and hopefully shed some light, maybe provide a little bit more insight. So, creating a Scprs entry. We all know that once we do our purchase order, we have to go in and register it and report what we've purchased. And it's going to be similar to what we have already been doing in BidSync. So, again, if you want the step-by-step process just to make sure that you're doing all the right things, going to all the right navigations, again, remember there's that printed option. And that will print out all the different steps and you can verify that you're following the correct steps. Couple of things I want to talk about. So, your business unit and your purchase document number are going to be two very important pieces of information. You'll find this out as you operate within Fiscal Scprs. So, your business unit is your department. It's not our unit that we're used to speaking of in terms of the unit we work in. It's our larger department. So as you can imagine, under your business unit, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be reporting within your business unit, which is why your purchase document number is going to be so important. Because that purchase document number is a unique number. I know for buyers, you have multiple purchase documents that you're working on at one time. By using your business unit and purchase document number, it is going to be the easiest way to search and find your entry, whether it's just to verify that you've registered it properly or to find it to amend your entry. And we're going to go into those in a little bit more detail in just a little bit. But I want to call that out because if you haven't experienced it already, these are going to be the two easiest ways. Using these two numbers is going to be the easiest way to search and find anything within Fiscal Scprs. The other thing I want to call out is the DGS Billing Code. You'll notice that the DGS Billing Code has an asterisk there, which means that it is mandatory. So, based on your business unit, if you click the magnifying glass there with DGS Billing Code, the billing codes that will populate are based on the business unit. So if your business unit is a large department, you may have a plethora of business billing codes that you're dealing with. If your business unit is a smaller department, you may have more of a limited number of billing codes that you may be dealing with. Either way, especially for example, if you are a headquarters buyer, you want to make sure that you're paying extra attention because, again, you want to make sure you're selecting the correct billing code as you're reporting. Now, I know this is just reporting, quote unquote, but it is mandatory that we report. We want our reporting to match what's in our purchase file because remember, Fiscal is not replacing our purchase file. So we want everything to match. The other thing I want to call out is most of our systems that we use do not allow us as buyers to create a purchase order that includes multiple billing codes. Now I know out there may be some of you going, yes, my system does, mine does. If your system does allow you to do multiple billing codes on one purchase order, you are going to have to create multiple Scprs entries using the same purchase order. Now, I will say this, it's going to cause a little bit of extra work and a little bit of math. So you might not want to do this early in the morning if you're like me. You might want to wait till later in the day when you've had enough coffee to make sure that the math is right. But I say this because, for example, if you have 3 billing codes that are part of your purchase order, you're going to have 3 separate Scprs entries using the correct billing codes. But you're going to have to make sure that the billing codes have the correct charges listed under them. For example, if it's a magazine subscription that's shared equally across 3 billing codes, you're going to have to make sure that each billing code represents 33% of that cost. Now, you may have to work with your accounting and budgets office to make sure that your numbers are correct. And I say accounting and budgets because they are the office that's responsible for making sure that people are paid, but they're also responsible for making sure that the charges are coming out of the correct billing code. So this may require you to work with your accounting and budgets office to make sure that your numbers are correct. Again, all the different entries, if it's between 2 billing codes, 3 billing codes, 4 billing codes, all of the entries have to total up to your grand total of your purchase order. So that's a great way to double check your math. But it's going to cause a little bit of work, which is why some departments don't allow it. And your department, the system may allow you to do it, but your department may have changed their policy to say you can no longer do that. So make sure, if this is something that you're used to doing, make sure you double check your departmental policies. Be aware that if you do have multiple billing codes in one purchase order, you are going to create multiple Scprs entries for that purchase order. Okay, so hopefully I made that clear. If you have questions, please keep submitting them throughout the webinar. I know we're going over some information. I want to make sure it's clear. Now, this next item is where we get a lot of questions. So I'm hoping that I can explain it. Line item reporting. Now, we're not used to doing line item reporting here in Scprs. Fiscal allows us to report UNSPSC codes that are 12 digits long, which means we can get pretty specific. What do I mean by that? For something as general as office supplies, in BitSync, the UNSPSC codes only allowed us to be very general, office supplies. Here in Fiscal, we're able to delineate sticky notes versus pens versus notebooks versus staples. So we can literally go line by line and indicate what we've purchased. Now, if you are a transacting department, what do I mean by transacting department? You're creating your purchase orders within Fiscal. Okay? You are not going to have to worry about Scprs. Why? Because your reporting automatically comes from the creation of your purchase order in Fiscal. So you out there that are watching this webinar are most likely non-transacting departments. What does that mean? You are not creating your purchase orders in Fiscal. You may be soliciting for your events in Fiscal, but you're awarding, creating your purchase order all outside of Fiscal. That's why you're creating a Scprs entry, because now you have to report what you've bought. And because it's outside of Fiscal, Fiscal has no way of knowing what you've bought. So, it's very important to have similar reporting between transacting departments and non-transacting departments. What do I mean? If Eli is a transacting department and buys office supplies, and he has a detailed reporting because he transacts in Fiscal, is able to report that he's bought sticky notes, pens, notebooks, and staples. And I am a non-transacting department, and I just report it as office supplies. It is not similar reporting. It is not matching reporting. So as a tenet of Fiscal is transparency. So these 12 UNSPSC digit codes allow us to be as transparent as possible, allows for this type of robust reporting that allows us to really list what we bought without being general. So use the proper UNSPSC codes. I know for those of you out there who are used to doing 50, 100, 150 line item purchase orders, this is going to take time. There is no save and continue function. I'm going to repeat that. There is no save and continue function within Fiscal Scprs. There are some areas within Fiscal that do allow for save and continue, but not in Fiscal Scprs. Therefore, if you do have those 50, 100, 150 line item purchase orders that you are trying to report, make sure you have the time to report it from start to finish, because the system will not allow you to save and continue, and I don't want you to lose all that work. So find the proper UNSPSC code, and then you also notice there's the EPP Fabric reporting. If you look at Chapter 9 of the SCMF, it lists that there's going to be additional reporting in Fiscal Scprs. Now, in BitSync, we weren't used to reporting EPP within Scprs. Well, in Fiscal, we are. Now, this is another reason why we can do line-by-line reporting. Again, going back to those office supplies, if we have items that require EPP reporting, let's say I have a 10 line item purchase order, and only 2 of those line items require EPP reporting, I can do that very easily, line by line, having the proper EPP reporting for the proper line. So again, UNSPSC code, EPP reporting, we're going to be having to report line by line. To add line items, all you're going to keep doing is clicking that plus sign and going in and again inputting the information properly. Now make sure that all of your line items total the grand total that you list above the line items area of the page. There is no automatic totaling function. There is no way the system stops you to say, hey, your totals don't match, check your math. So make sure that you're aware of this, and make sure that you've double checked and triple checked yourself as well. Make sure that your totals match. Now if you're reporting straight off of your standard 65, your totals should all match. I mean, it stands to reason, right? You're just reporting exactly what was on that standard 65. But if you're doing multiple billing codes, that's where it gets dicey. So again, just make sure you're aware of all of these things. Now remember, I said that there's no EP number. So how do I verify that my entry is saved? Good question. Searching for your Scprs entry. Now, if I created a Scprs entry, I hit save, it clearly successful. Remember, I'm not getting any kind of confirmation code or anything like that. What I would do is to double check myself. I would go in and search for the entry. If I search for it and find the entry myself, chances are that an auditor would be able to do the same, right? So, if you go into Fiscal Scprs search, you'll be led to this page. Now, you'll see through this screen that there is a plethora of ways that you can search for your Scprs entry. There's the contract type, the acquisition method, the acquisition type, the UNSPSC code. But there's those 2 important numbers I told you about. There's the business unit and the purchase order ID. I would highly recommend that you use these 2 functions, only because it's probably going to give you the most successful, easiest way to search for your entry. Now I know, as buyers, we're working on multiple purchase orders, and you're like, I can't remember all of the different 20 numbers that I have on my desk. I get it. So let's say you just use your business unit. As a colleague of mine likes to say, Fiscal does care, and they're going to make you do a date range. But I want to highlight something. None of these functions within Fiscal for non-transacting departments are connected. So what do I mean by that? If you created an event, you went to Eli's webinar, you've done a great job listing your event and getting bids. You've awarded outside of Fiscal, you've created your purchase order outside of Fiscal, and now you're reporting that purchase order by creating a Scprs entry. There is no way for the system to connect that Scprs entry with the event that you created. I hope that makes sense. So there's nowhere to indicate the event ID. As you can see here, when you enter the Scprs entry, it doesn't ask you for what your event ID was. There's no way to connect it to that solicitation event. So make sure that you're using those two pieces of information I told you about. Now again, like I said, if you are in a rush, maybe you don't have the purchase order number handy, you're going to need to put in a date range. Fiscal does care. They want to minimize the search results that you get and help you find your Scprs entries. So they're going to ask you for a date range. They feel that hopefully that will minimize your search results. Again, remember, your business unit is going to be your department as a whole. So as you and your colleagues start entering information into Fiscal Scprs, you can imagine how many search results would appear if you just use your business unit. So the best solution would be using your business unit and purchase order number. Now, once you are able to find your Scprs entry, you'll be led to a search result similar to the one you see here. One thing I want to highlight is that none of these fields are linked, and that's one of the differences we are all going to have to get used to within Fiscal. We were used to in BitSync being able to go into BitSync, search for Scprs entry, click, and be led to this wonderful detailed page that we could print out and stick in our procurement file. Now, that's not going to happen in Fiscal. In Fiscal, what you see is what you're going to get. But if you look at all the information as you scroll, you'll notice that it's the same information that we entered when we entered our original Scprs entry. You'll see the PO total, the UNSPSC codes, all of that information is available as you scroll. So it's going to give you the details of your entry, just not in the same way that we are used to. Now, if you did have an amendment to your purchase order or your Scprs entry, and you've done an amendment, if you go to the Additional Informations tab, you'll see a View Amendment column. So, if you click on the View Amendment, it's one of the only clickable fields within these search results. You'll be led to the Amendment Details page. It'll give you, again, what you see is what you get. You'll be able to review it, click OK, and you'll be led back to your search screen. So again, when you click View Amendment, you're going to be led to the Amendment Details page, and when you click OK, you'll be returned to the previous screen. So basically, it's not going to give you that pretty printout that we're used to, which is why we need to make sure that we're following our department's documentation policies, whether it's taking screenshots, whether it's copying and pasting something. Make sure you're following those policies. If an auditor comes into your office, they're going to do the same search mechanisms and review what you've entered. They're going to probably review the information you entered to make sure it's accurate and that it matches, which is why I say that just make sure that you're properly indicating the billing code and all that information as you enter the Scprs entry. Hopefully that's a great double check for you as well, because if you can search for it, like I said, chances are the auditor will be able to find your Scprs entry if you can. Now the next item I want to go over is adding a Scprs supplier. So the first thing that you have to look at in terms of adding a Scprs supplier is, do I have the right role? And when we talk about adding a Scprs supplier, because there is no save and continue function within Fiscal Scprs, you're going to want to search for your vendor first. Determine whether the vendor needs to be added before even starting your Scprs entry. You don't want to input all that data into the entry page only to find out that you need to add the supplier, which will force you to restart your Scprs entry. So, the vendor processor role is the role that we are talking about. And again, your department was the one that provided you with the roles that you were mapped to. So if you feel that you were not mapped properly or you need an additional role, you're going to have to talk to your management to make sure you're provided the proper roles. So just keep that in mind. Fiscal nor CalPCA or DGS had any control over that. But you were mapped according to what functions you needed to perform within Fiscal. So if you did not find your vendor in Fiscal, you're going to follow the UPK steps to add them and continue with your entry. Now if you have the role, this is a navigation you should see. Main menu, vendors, vendor information, add update, vendor, add a new value. It's a long list of clicks. If you don't see this navigation, there may be a couple of reasons. The first reason may be that you weren't mapped to the role at all. Maybe you were able to do it in BidSync and you weren't mapped properly to the role in Fiscal. So if that is the case, again, you're going to have to work with your management to get that role assigned to you. But check with your manager or your department liaison, verify what roles you do have. I would suggest that anyway. Make sure you know what roles you have. You're going to want to make sure you know what you're going to be able to do in Fiscal, as well as what you're not going to be able to do in Fiscal. Okay? The other reason you may not see this navigation is that maybe there was a glitch. Maybe there was a functionality issue with your navigation. The people that are best equipped to help you with those issues are going to be the Fiscal Service Center. Now their contact information is in the handouts, the information and resources handout that's attached to today's webinar. So they're going to be the ones that will help you with any glitches, functionality, system issues that you may be having. So use that contact information, their phone number, their email address, to get further assistance with that. Unfortunately, CalPCA does not have control over any of the mapping or have access to any of the software administrative functions, so we wouldn't be able to advise you of what roles you have, fix any navigation issues you may be having. So the Fiscal Service Center really is going to be where you're going to go for all of those issues. If you do have the navigation and you're getting prepared to enter a Scprs supplier, the information you're going to need is the business type, the vendor's tax identification number, the business address and contact information, and of course a completed and signed Standard 204. I bring this slide up because I'm the type of person, if I'm going to go through any process, I want to make sure I'm going to have the information I may need handy. This may include making sure I've scanned in an email and have a scanned copy available of the signed Standard 204 because I'm going to have to attach it. So those are things I would want to make sure I do before I even get started. Now, if you don't have the role and you're going to be working with someone that does, keep in mind this is information they are going to need as well. Stands to reason, right? They're going to be adding the Scprs supplier for you. Most of the time, if it's not someone involved in the procurement, they may have questions. They may need more information than you may think. So just be mindful of the information that you may have in that purchase file that may help you and or your colleague add that Scprs supplier into Fiscal. So what do you need to know? I would just make sure that prior to doing a Scprs entry, you search for the vendor. The vendor search functions have a default set to begins with. If you notice, the list to search starts with vendor. The vendor is a vendor ID. That's a number that's assigned to our vendors. So you most likely won't have that number. So I wouldn't use that first vendor option. Vendor name is what I would suggest you use, and I would suggest you change the begins with to contains. Here's why. We may be used to be calling a vendor by one name. We may not know that the vendor's actual name, official name, begins with the word the. So if you don't use the contains, you're not going to find the vendor because you're not using the word the in front of their name. Begins with, it's looking for any vendor that begins with the word you are using. If you use contains, it's going to give you a most robust search result and hopefully more successful search result because it's going to bring up any vendor that contains the word you're looking for. Again, so even if it has the word "the" in front of the name, you'll be able to at least find it, hopefully. Save yourself a lot of trouble trying to add them only to find out that it's a duplicate. So search using that function. Persistence, we're not used to seeing this word in procurement. It's simply how the vendor will be paid. So it's going to default to regular. I would suggest let's not touch anything that has to do with payment. Open for ordering tab must be checked in order to generate a purchase order. So remember, these vendors are going to be accessible to all departments throughout the state. So we want to make sure that that tab is checked so that others who are transacting in Fiscal are now able to create a purchase order using that vendor. When we're all done adding the requested information, you've gone through the steps, you've done all the steps necessary to add the vendor, you want to click the check for duplicate button just to make sure that the vendor you're creating does not already exist. The system is going to use various data that you've entered to double check the system, whether it's a tax identification number, an address, a contact name. So that's another great way to double check yourself that you've not searched and not found them. If there is a duplicate vendor, you are going to get an error message that says the vendor already exists. If you've done everything, there is no duplicate, the vendor management unit is going to review your entry and approve it. So what does that mean for your Scprs entry? You're going to be able to have the vendor accessible to you immediately, so you'll be able to go in and still complete your Scprs entry even though the vendor management unit is still reviewing it. Now, there have been questions regarding what happens if the vendor management unit determines that it is a duplicate. Am I going to have to redo your Scprs entry? I've not gotten any indication of such. Hopefully they'll be able to at least combine the entries so that it can recognize that it is the same entry, and anything that's within one entry gets merged into the other. Fiscal may be calling you, maybe doing their due diligence to make sure that the vendor really is a duplicate, because you may not know that they are doing business as. You may not know that they have another company that's doing business as. So just make sure you're being cooperative, provide any information necessary to Fiscal. Hopefully you will not have to redo your Scprs entry, though I've not gotten an indication that you will have to. If you don't have the role, again, it's important to know who does have the role. So you're going to want to check with your manager, verify who does have the role, so you know who you're going to be going to add the Scprs supplier. So identify who that is. They may be working in your unit, they may work in your office, they may not. They may be working in another office you normally don't deal with. So always helpful to know who you need to go to. Provide them the necessary information, especially when it's not you. Because they've not been involved in your procurement, so they may not know everything that you may think that they know, so make sure you're providing them all the necessary information that they may need. And once the vendor has been added, then you can go ahead and complete your Scprs entry. Amending a Scprs entry. We all know that there are times where we need to amend a Scprs entry, and I want to call out at this time that third handout, which is the Scprs bulletin. It just came out last week. I'm hoping you had the chance to read it. It talks about the last day you were able to amend Scprs entries within BidSync. You know, we're going through this transition, so you're going to see a lot of these dates be sent to us about when's the last day to do this in BidSync, when's the last day to do that in BidSync. So the last day to amend Scprs entries within BidSync is tomorrow, Friday, February 19th. So you're going to want to make sure that anything you have to amend within BidSync you do by tomorrow. If not, you're going to be doing them within Fiscal. Fear not, there's a place where you can note where the former registration that it is a amendment, and then you would notate your purchase file accordingly. So where do you go? So if you go into Fiscal Scprs data entry, you'll notice that when you first entered your Scprs entry, you did add a new value. When you go to do a amendment, you're going to do find an existing value. Makes sense, right? And there you go, the two important pieces of information that I talked about, the business unit and purchase document number. Now, again, if you look nearer the purchase document number, you'll notice the begins with. This is exactly what I was talking about just a bit ago when I talked about vendor searches. The begins with is a default. So if you click that arrow button, you'll see that there's underneath that begins with is a contains function. Even with purchase document number, if your department uses a purchase document number that's 27 numbers long and you know it by the last 8, if you use contains, you can just put in that last 8 and it'll still give you hopefully a successful search result in that manner. But again, you're going to put your business unit, purchase document number, whether it's the full document number, partial document number, hit search, find your Scprs entry. When you go into it, you'll notice that you're able to edit all fields. Now, I know this is reporting. It has nothing to do with your actual purchase order. But remember, your reporting needs to match your purchase order. An auditor is going to be looking at that. So be very careful. The fact that you're able to edit everything, if you're just trying to do something quickly and you accidentally click something, you don't want to run into problems with that. Remember, Fiscal is going to put up little to no red flags, especially in this arena. It's not going to put up a flag saying, hey, you're editing something that shouldn't be edited. So just be very mindful and careful when you do that. It'll again allow you to edit any field, whether it's the total, line items, all of that information. So go ahead and make your edits. You'll notice that every edit requires a change order. It just keeps track of what changes occurred within that entry. And every change order requires a change order reason. Now, the change order reason list wasn't as exhaustive. Most likely you're going to be clicking other. Now, while the clicking other satisfies the requirement within Fiscal, it doesn't quite tell us much when it comes to our procurement story. So, we're going to want to make sure that we're documenting our file appropriately as to what changes occurred and why. Simply by clicking other does not preclude us from any type of questions or trying to be very clear as to what happened. Remember, Fiscal is not replacing your procurement file, so an auditor is still going to look at that for a procurement story. They're still going to ask, well, why did this purchase order get changed? You want to make sure that that purchase order tells your full procurement story. So again, every change order requires a change order reason. You're going to hit save, and then it'll create that amendment. Again, when we searched, we saw how you can view the amendment and the details that will come up. And so again, you've created your amendment. The auditor will look at the view amendment and they'll look and see what you amended. So the last item I want to talk about is uploading a Scprs entry. So some things to note about this. The upload is a process that's simply using your existing system, extracting the data from that system, implanting it into a template that was provided by Fiscal, and uploading it into Fiscal. Now, the upload would take the place of you needing to enter in every single purchase order. But your department had to decide whether they even wanted to do this. So, prior to the fall release, and what was rolled out on January 4th is what is deemed by Fiscal as the fall release, departments elected to participate in the process of the upload. Now, this meant that it probably did testing, user testing with your system and the Fiscal template. They probably looked at error messages, all of those things. They wanted to make sure that the department system as well and the data it extracts as well as the template were compatible. Now, further conversations probably took place around the frequency of the upload, how the data would be extracted, who was going to be responsible for that, and who was going to be responsible for doing the upload and addressing any errors. If you looked at the UPK, it talked about how the errors would look. So of course someone's got to be on the other end of that error log to correct those errors. So all these conversations took place. Now you may have been a part of those conversations. You may not have been. Your colleagues may have been part of the conversation or not, and your managers may have been part of the conversation or not. Either way, your department may have already notified you and your colleagues specific instructions if they participate in the upload. It could have been making sure that your data is saved by a certain point in time, making sure that you're entering information a certain way. So make sure you're very clear about those instructions. If you're still not sure, you're not quite positive if your department participated, ask your manager. They may know. They may have more directives. Again, it's always good to ask. Now, if your department did not participate in the upload, all you're going to do is manually enter each transaction as shown in the Creating a Scprs Entry portion of the UPK. Now, I know that becomes cumbersome, especially when you have those 100, 150 line item purchase orders and you've got a lot of them. So understand, but remember a couple of tips. Remember, there's no save and continue function, so make sure that if you are manually entering each transaction, you have the time to start and finish each of those. Whether it's, I'm just going to be able to only do one with the time I have, make sure you're allotting that in the time you need to enter all of your purchase orders. Now, if you have more questions, of course, we're going to be here in the webinar a little bit longer, but as Eli said, we are also going to be finishing these webinar offerings as of tomorrow. So there's also the CalPCA Help Desk. There is on your calendar our last FAQ session, and those we like to call Fiscal Fridays. They give you a little tidbit of information. We try to impart some things that we've learned over the week, things that you as buyers have shared with us in terms of the obstacles you have been facing with whether it's with CSCR, Scprs, or progress payments. So please join us for that. Hopefully that'll also help you as you operate within Fiscal. And I want to say, you know, this is a new system we're all getting used to. So we are going to try to provide as much information as possible. Use those UPKs, the information you've gleaned today, as well as any job aids you may have available. That should help you in terms of the transition between BidSync and Fiscal. So that's the information I wanted to cover today. I hope you're sending in your questions. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over back to Eli, and thank you for joining us today.
All right, thank you, Anela. So, look, lots to cover there. You know, no EP number, that's a big change for a lot of us. We need to be aware of that, and Anela hopefully shed some light on the process for you outside of that big change as well. Now look, obviously we mentioned the UPKs a lot. Those aren't going anywhere. The Fiscal Training Academy website is linked from the CalPCA page. So if you can find us, you can find those UPKs again. Please feel free to refer back to those UPKs. We will be finishing up the live webinars in terms of courses for the Fiscal functions that we've been providing so far. We're going to be wrapping those up this week. Do not worry too much about that. We are recording videos to post online so that you can refer back to the classes that we give and match those up to the UPK, so you've got a better platform of understanding. Refer back, use those resources. Don't ignore the help desks that are available to you. Fiscal Service Center is a resource for you. The CalPCA help desk will be as much of a resource as we can be for you. And there's also, of course, PAU, the Purchasing Authority Unit, which will respond to any policy questions you may have in terms of how to do a particular policy within Fiscal now. Because obviously, you know, some of you out there are going to have a hand in setting department policy. We're aware of that. PAU contacts have been included in the information resources PDF, so as you can reach out to them for better clarification. You know, most of these issues that are going to come up, someone's thought about already. Some they might not have, but most have already been considered, so there is probably a response that we can get you. All right, so we will leave the webinar open for just a couple more minutes. Get your questions in so as I can respond to them. Anela is now responding to questions as well, so if you have a query that's come up during the course of the presentation, get it in now. We did say don't wait to the end, but we are going to have a little bit of time to cover it. So if you haven't asked your question, please do so. Use that side tab. Other than that, we hope you have enjoyed the presentation. I hope you've taken something away. That the hour hasn't been wasted for you. We do have some feedback for you to provide us. It's a one-page survey. It's only 3 or 4 questions, if that, at the end when I end the webinar. So if you stick around, you can complete that. We always appreciate feedback here at CalPCA. Anela has suggested, we alluded to it throughout the course of today, we are going to be going back to the more traditional curriculum for CalPCA very soon. We will have classes released on the training registration system. We will make an announcement about our calendar once we have that confirmed. So if you've been hanging out for acquisitions under 5, we have that next week, Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday, 3 morning sessions. So if you're able to get approved for that, please feel free to register. Use the TRS, the training registration system, to get into that class. We'll be releasing other classes as they are confirmed. So be aware, sign up, subscribe, so as you get all of those, we call them core curriculums because we've been focusing so much on Fiscal lately. So we will sign off for now. I'll leave the webinar room open so that we can respond to some of the questions you may have. But otherwise, in about 2-3 minutes, I'll end the webinar for everybody today. We look forward to seeing you either online again, sometime between now and Friday, or within a CalPCA class in the very near future. Thanks again.